Very warm welcome to everybody. Yeah, you're right, Keshav. This is a very important and relevant topic. And at least somebody who is into gender studies, I do attend a lot of talks on this subject and I read a lot about this subject. However, there is so much, and I don't know how much justice I'll be able to do with the topic in a span of half. But yeah, so we can always discuss more, and I have given my email ID at the end of the presentation, and you can always get in touch with me for questions, and feel free to ask anything, any doubts that you have in the end. If I don't know, and I always confess when I don't know any something, so I'll find out and I'll share my knowledge with you. So I'm going to share my slide here. Right, okay. So I don't want to go into section 377 in specific of the Indian Penal Code. But yeah, I mean, there will be certainly references about it. So the most important judgments that we can talk about, so this is partly legal, partly social discussion. So the most important judgments that we can talk about are Nalsa and Nate Johar, which talked about the, Nalsa talked about the rights of transgender persons, and Nate Johar versus Union of India decriminalize the homosexual relationships. So, like I said, without going into too many details about 377, but yeah, it is important that we go into, if we talk about queer culture over here, that we go into this term that is called LGBTQIA. So L is lesbian, G is gay, B is bisexual, T is transgender, Q is queer, I is intersex, A is agender and or asexual, and plus. So this just keeps increasing, and that's why ultimately we ended up adding the plus. So there are 72 recognized genders in the world today. So that's a big number. What we, after 2000, say 15, 14, after the NASA judgment, are ready to accept as of yet three: male, female, and third gender or transgender. But there are 72 recognized genders. I'll not go into the details. There is not time, but I'll send you a list of them if you would like that. So just I'm going through these terms. What is sexual identity? Is what is sex? Sex is biological. Obviously there are many debates even over that, but yeah, sex is biological. You're a male or you're a female. There were the two binaries, and genders can be many, but yeah, with sex, usually we still understand only two binaries, which is male and female. And then there is hijra, and then there is intersex. We'll come to that. So when we say sexual identity, so what is my sexual identity? I'm a cisgender woman. I'm a female. Cisgender means the gender. This is one of the gender identities. A gender that I was assigned at the time of my birth. I was told that my parents were told that a girl is born, and I still identify as a woman, as a girl, as a female. So that's my sexual identity, binary, male, female. What's gender identity? Gender identity is personal. Gender identity is whether I identify as a male or a female or a transgender or a transsexual or an intersex or third gender or pangender, omnigender, butch, all those, like I said, so there are 72 terms. So gender identities can be several, and gender identity is my own, is what I decide to take up. We come to the term transgender. If I talk about transgender under the Transgender Persons Act of 2019, so transgender is anybody who does not identify with the gender that they were born with, and they may be in the, so where does this trans word come from? It comes from transition. So whatever they are transitioning into or whatever they feel, that's why we've kept the term a little transgender, who does not identify with the gender that they were assigned at the time of the birth. Who a hijra or an intersex? So now when we are talking about Transgender Act, which we will discuss later on in the lecture. So when we're talking about the Transgender Persons Act, the protection of their rights, what I feel and what seems to be quite true is that the Transgender Act is only actually focusing mostly on the hijras or the intersex. What we recognize as intersex or hijra is somebody who is born with both kind of reproductive organs, or whose reproductive organs cannot be completely identified as male or female. There are 3 or 4 categories of persons who can be called intersex based on the kind of reproductive organs that they have. And basically, hijras or intersex persons are those who have some problem with their reproductive organs. So when I see the act and when I see who are the beneficiaries, and in fact, who have been identified as transgender in India, I see only the government and the public morality only recognizing hijras or intersex as transgender persons or third gender persons. I don't see actually, that categorization. Like if we talk about the film actress Bobby Darling. So Bobby Darling is a person born male, but I should say she now, she identified herself as a female. So like I said, I'm a cisgender woman and my sexual identity is female. My gender identity is woman, female, and I use the pronouns she and her, right? अगर आपको मुझे address करना है तो आप कहोगे निरति, she is sitting there. और आज मैंने निरति का lecture सुना था, her presentation was fine, right? So Bobby Darling is somebody who was born a male, and then she started using the pronouns. As she grew, she started using the pronouns she and her. So that's how the name came about, Bobby Darling. She always felt that she was a female in the body of a male. So that for me is a transgender. The person was identified or assigned a gender at the time of their birth, but that's not the gender that they identify with when they grew up, when they got a sense of themselves. जब हम छोटे होते हैं, जब हम पैदा होते हैं till at least 5, 6, 7, 8 years, तो हमें किसी चीज की कोई सेंस ही नहीं होती है. बट एक्चुअली जेंडर न्यूट्रल बॉयज क्या होते हैं, गर्ल्स क्या होते हैं, ये चीजें तो हमें मतलब एटलीस्ट टिल द एज ऑफ 5 हमें इतनी समझ में भी नहीं आती है. इट स्टार्ट्स ग्रोइंग आफ्टर दैट. सो उसके बाद जब आपको लगने लगे कि नहीं, मुझे like Bobby Darling felt, I'm a she and I'm not a he. So Bobby Darling underwent a a surgery, a sex reassignment surgery, and she converted, or she transformed. Sorry, not converted. She transformed into or transited into a woman, a female. So transgender, and then you have transsexual. So transsexual is a person who was assigned a particular sex and gender at the time of their birth, but then they have underwent a gender reassignment surgery. When you undergo a proper procedure, a surgical procedure, that's when you become a transsexual, because that's when your sexual organs or reproductive organs are affected. They are, they are the ones that are, I should not say, I can't get the right word. Tinkered with is such a informal and bad word. Interfered with at your choice. Okay. So I've covered transgender, hijra, non-binary. Like I said, binary is a male and a female. Non-binary is somebody who says, I don't identify either as a male or as a female. Binary means two. So male, female, I neither identify as a male nor as a female, neither as a man nor as a woman. I don't identify with either of them. So I am non-binary. If you were paying attention, I also mentioned the word omnigender. So omnigender, a person who identifies themselves as omnigender is somebody who says, I am all genders. Okay. There is a third gender. So transgender was a much bigger umbrella, actually. And third gender is something that we are recognizing in India as a person who is neither male nor female. I covered transsexual. Koti is a pretty derogatory term. Gender non-conforming is somewhat like non-binary, and also somebody like, I am assigned a gender, but I don't behave like I said, non-binary. Either way, intersex I have covered. There's just one more thing I wanted to talk about. I talked about transgender. I talked about transsexual. Transition also I have talked about. I'll come to it later on. Okay, let me proceed. So if we talk about homosexuality in the Indian history, it has always been present. I mean, anybody who says that this is a foreign concept that we have brought in has to have their minds or their heads checked, have to read a little bit more of history, because this is not a Western concept. And अगर हम जो भी लोग बात करते हैं, so my favorite author on this is Mr. Dr. Devdutt Patnaik. He's a medicine doctor, and he has written extensively about Indian mythology, Hindu mythology. I should say Indian mythology, because he also writes about Islam and he also writes about Christianity. So he has spoken about his work, Shikhandi, is mainly about homosexuality in Indian mythology. We all recognize who Shikhandi is from Mahabharata, right? So there are so many other instances that we'll see. There's this very beautiful, instance where Krishna, Arjun, it's about Arjun and Krishna, that Arjun is so enamored by Krishna, so deeply involved in what Krishna is. He realizes, he sees that Krishna dances with there's a place in Mathura where Krishna dances with gopis, and he takes the woman form, and nobody is allowed to watch it, but only women. No males are allowed over there. And Arjun takes the form of a female, and he watches Krishna performing the Ras Leela with his gopis. So there is that that attraction that you can find, which is not, you can't say it's purely it's non-sexual, but at the same time, I mean, it is not right to relate everything just to sex. It's just their expression of love. So if I go into the homosexuality history in India, so it's, it was felt that it is alien to our culture and it is an imperial import, which is just not. We all understand what homosexuality is. LGB is what we're talking about: gays, lesbians, and bisexuals. So a man having intercourse with man, or a woman having intercourse with woman. So without going into too many details, Manu Smriti prescribed punishment for homosexuality. Women having sex with women or lesbianism was something जो recognize होता ही नहीं था. आप मान ही नहीं सकते थे, ऐसा तो कुछ होता ही नहीं है. कहीं कुछ पकड़ा भी जाता था तो उसके लिए, I mean, there are certain instances in the history अगर हम पढ़ते हैं तो, जहां पर ऐसी चीजें पकड़ी गई, but were never revealed. वो बस कहा जाता था वो कुछ गलत एक तरीके की एक्ट कर रहे थे, for which they had to be punished. But men having sex with men was very common under the Hindu mythology, under the Islamic history. Like I said, under the Hindu mythology, Shiv Parvati, Shiv is Ardhanarishwar, Shiv and Vishnu takes the form of Mohini, and Ayyappa is called Hari Har Putra. And then I told you about the Krishna Arjun attraction. And in Islam, it was very common when, we had the Mughal rule that the kings would have page boys as, they will have their page boys with whom it was not openly spoken, but they were having sexual intercourse. They would have a flank of page boys for this purpose only. It was very common. There is a reference to the same, to homosexuality, even in that Padmavat movie, right? I clearly remember. I mean, there was this one scene where Malik Gafur says, do you want me to? So he makes that gesture. Do you want me to come underneath you or something like that? So do you want me to on your bed? So there are very clear references in the history. So there was stigma attached to it. There was punishment for it. And before 1860, actually, how so okay, let me go beyond the history because I would not be able to cover so many other things that I want to. The Indian transgender history as well. So Vedic literature talks about Tritya Prakriti, third nature. We know that, woman is the caregiver and man is the earner. But the Vedic literature recognizes Tritya Prakriti. And Wilhelm says that the heterosexuals against their natures versus third gender according to nature. I'll come to this. I wanted to say that when we talk about 377 and sodomy, that is intercourse, penal intercourse in the anus. So that was again how sodomy became an offense under 377 or under the IPC, and it also became a ground for divorce under the Hindu Marriage Act, is because this act of intercourse between two men was considered abhorrent and against nature, against prakriti, like I said, and for that reason it was incorporated in 377. For that reason, it became a ground for divorce. Sodomy as a ground for divorce and for cruelty under the Hindu Marriage Act. Just that the idea of anal sex between two men is so abhorrent that the entire act was labeled, even between a male and a female, was termed as an offense. That's what 377 is all about, actually. So yeah, now coming back to the transgender history. There was the Criminal Tribes Act 1871, which basically was it had an amendment in 1894, and this is what also gave birth to 377 IPC. And Criminal Tribes Act, with the 1894 amendment, said that we are going to maintain a register of all transgender persons, and we are going to monitor their activities. And there are several instances where there were cases of mostly 377 cases in the past where people were dressing like just people dressing as a man dressing as a woman. Obviously, a woman dressing as a man was out of the question. I mean, it was just out of imagination. Not that it didn't happen, just that it could not be imagined that a woman would do that. So, a man dressed in a woman's clothes in India was considered, or performing dances was considered to be an offense under the Criminal Tribes Act 1871. And even Sir Macaulay said that it's homosexuality is a revolting subject, and the discussion itself would injure morals of the community. So please take into account this word morals of the community, because we're coming to morals of the community just in a little while. I'm going to share this presentation with you, and you can have a look at the earlier cases. I don't want to go into them right now. It's just that it was vaguely described. 377 unnatural offenses was very vaguely described, and the Indian court started including any non-procreative sexual acts. Like I said, penile and anal sex was considered sodomy under section 377, and the court started punishing people for it, even if it was consensual. So if I look at all the judgments in the past, I don't want to go into detail of NAS Foundation and Suresh Kaushal, because that's, again, like I said, it's on 377. Our reference for 377 comes here because 377 was not only about homosexuality. I told you about the Criminal Tribes Act, right? And 1871, which was just keeping a register of all the persons who were, even, like I said, dressing up, of all the transgenders, in effect, who were dressing up, or transvestite both. Yes, this is the term that I forgot to mention earlier. Transvestite are people, mostly it's about, again, about a man, or all these terms, we still need a revision of them. So a man dressing up as a woman, we know, so if we've seen that series Friends, we know that Chandler's father was a transvestite, right? A man dressing as a woman and dancing and performing, doesn't need to be dancing and performing, just a man dressing as a woman is a transvestite. So without, I mean, going into the gender identity question over this, transvestite is a person who dresses as the opposite gender or the opposite sex. So the Criminal Tribes Act and 377 was punishing transgenders and transvestites as well. धीरे धीरे करके उस स्टेज पर हम आए कि अभी तो हम बात करेंगे सेक्सुअल एक्ट की, ठीक है, और वो भी सेक्सुअल एक्ट में भी हम होमोसेक्सुअल्स को टारगेट करने वाले हैं, ठीक है. सो नास फाउंडेशन दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट की जजमेंट थी जिसने कहा कि होमोसेक्सुअलिटी क्यों सिन है, क्यों क्राइम है, हमें नहीं पता है. सुरेश कौशल, सुप्रीम कोर्ट overruled NAS Foundation. I want to come to NALSA. So NALSA versus Union of India legally recognizes third gender as a gender identity. Third gender. So we have a form में लिखा होता है male, female, T. T is for third gender. He's not just transgender. अब transgender है, but 2014, and even if I talk about 2012 and 13, I remember one of the southern states had started including T as one of the options for your gender. So NALSA is the judgment that said that you have a right to choose your gender identity and lead the life of dignity. आपसे कोई ये चीज ले नहीं सकता है. You don't have to approach somebody and वो नहीं certify करेंगे. लोग नहीं बोलेंगे कि आप मेल हो या फीमेल हो, आप अपनी जेंडर आइडेंटिटी खुद चूज करने वाले हो, ठीक है. सो आर्टिकल 15 और 16 जो इक्वालिटी की बात करता है अंडर द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, इट वाज सेड दैट देयर शुड नॉट बी एनी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन on the basis of sex, race, class, gender. So it was said that transgender people should not be discriminated under that act. I mean, under the provisions of the constitution. So अब मैं अगर इसकी बात करती हूँ, just give me a minute. Yeah. So I now want to come to the Transgender Persons Act of 2019. It was a bill which was passed in 2020 April में pass कर दिया गया, came about as the Transgender Persons Right to Protection Act 2019, and I'll just go there. But just एक word में बात करना चाहती हूँ उसके पहले about नवतेज जौहर में जो एक बात की गई थी कि हम पब्लिक मोरालिटी पे जाएंगे या कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी पर जाएंगे. What is constitutional morality and what is public morality? Public morality is fluid. आज मुझे लगता है ये एक पर्टिकुलर चीज गलत है, बट 10 साल के बाद वो चीज मेरे लिए टोटली एक्सेप्टेबल हो जाएगी. 10 साल पहले तक किसी भी पर्सन को अपने पेरेंट्स को ये बताना बहुत डिफिकल्ट था दैट आई एम गे और आई एम transgender, or I don't identify as a male, or I don't identify as a cisgender female, जो आपने पहले मुझे मेरे बर्थ के टाइम पर आपने मुझे जेंडर असाइन किया था, सेक्स असाइन किया था. सो बट 10 years later now it's not as difficult. So जब भी कोई मुझसे ये पूछता है कि हम इन इश्यूज के बारे में इतनी बात क्यों करते हैं, I was recently attending a talk on this and somebody said हमें इतना बोलने की इस बारे में जरूरत क्या है. ठीक है, आप जो हैं आप हैं, आप गे हो तो आप ठीक है, हम प्राइवेसी की बात करते हैं ना, आप अपने घर में रहिए ना. बात ये है कि people need to get into each other's faces and say these things, because जब तक हम इनके बारे में बात नहीं करेंगे, if they were not uh, men and women or persons of any gender, okay, binary, non-binary, जिन्होंने इतने सालों से ये डिबेट्स नहीं किए होते, who had not gone out on the streets, who had not, what is pride movement? So pride is not just about, the fact कि हाँ ठीक है, हम हर साल हमने एक डे बना दिया, इसको तो हम सेलिब्रेट करने वाले हैं, हमारा दिन है, हमारा दिन है। जी नहीं, हमें सड़कों पर आना पड़ा ताकि लोग हमें देखें और पहचाने कि देखो, लोगों को हिम्मत मिले, people are able to gather the courage to come out to others. And had these things not been done today, it would not have been easier for me to talk about, for me to say words like penis and anus and intercourse and sex so freely before you. So अगर हमने ये movements नहीं की होती तो हम इन चीजों के बारे में बात नहीं कर रहे होते, तो ये बातें करना बहुत जरूरी हो जाता है. So like again I'm saying that public morality तो change हो जाती है. Constitutional morality is, it's based on constitution. Constitution, it's a fluid document, वो भी change होता है, उसकी interpretations भी change होती हैं with the change in society, but the base is, equality and freedoms and right to life with dignity. वो चीजें कभी change नहीं होने वाली है, right? The basic fundamental जो structure है, वो basic structure change नहीं होने वाला है. So we have given rights to people, right to self identity, right to have a sexual identity of their own, a gender identity of their own, and that has to be based on constitutional morality and not just public morality, which keeps changing. आज आपको एक चीज सही लगती है, 15 साल बाद वो चीज सही नहीं लगेगी, ठीक है. Again, और मैं इसमें नहीं जाने वाली. This is the main morality of the morals of the community, public morality and constitutional morality. ठीक है. अच्छा, जब हम बात करते हैं queer culture की and क्या problems हमें आई, like just a second. Yeah. So, what was the impact of COVID-19 on homosexuals and transgender persons, on the LGBTQ community, right? LGBTQ plus community. So huge actually, the lockdowns and everything. काफी problems हम लोगों को इस वजह से आई. इस पर अभी एक बात पर मैं डिबेट करने वाली हूँ बस. Give me just 5 more minutes and I'll finish this. I'll wrap this up. So LGBTQ community, जो community है, the community in itself provides a lot of support to each other. And all these lockdowns and loss of movement, living with families, students are not living with the in hostels and not going to colleges anymore. So not being able to meet their own people and living in the family, jahan par they have not come out to the family, has taken a this constant vigilance has taken a lot of toll on the students, sorry, on the people of this community. Last year, when at the or any time that COVID has been at peak, the government has said that let there be no non-essential surgeries. So all these gender-affirming surgeries have been put on hold. So for that have been, that has been very difficult on people, especially on the ones who were in the middle of transitioning, because you start taking hormones to transit, but you're not able to get access to those hormone injections, and you are not able to go for the surgery. So that makes it very difficult. That transitioning phase is difficult as it is. Plus, COVID-19 made it very tough. So there was, because most of the transgender persons as of yet don't have ration cards, they could not get access to free food grains that were being distributed by the government. And visibly queer persons, there was a lot of discrimination against them in hospitals where free treatment was available for them. But people who are visibly queer, they were not treated, let's say, quite humanely as we would have liked in the COVID-19 duration. Last point I don't want to check out on. Sorry. uh, we still, do not recognize trans. I mean, we recognize men wanting to be women, but this women wanting to be men, or a woman feeling the need to be, a woman feeling trapped in a man's body is just like tum to tomboy ho. Although the same kind of stigma is attached to a, a male person who feels they are trapped in a man's body, a female who feels trapped in a man's body, कि आप बहुत effeminate हो, तुम तो gay हो. Again, another talk that I was attending, and there was this man, quite a slight, distinct way of talking, and he, for it took about 15-20 minutes of discussion on this, that a lot of people call me gay, and the speaker was trying to explain to him that you may be considered effeminate because of the distinct way that you speak, but there is absolutely no way why you should be called gay. But the talk took a different turn when he said, that a girl in my office was harassing me, not harassing me, but making fun of me. Everybody in the office makes fun of me, and this girl was making fun of me. And finally I said, fine, come and I'll show you a good time in the bed, and I'll rape you, and then you will understand that I'm a man. I don't want to go there. But yes, there's a lot of stigma attached to being a queer person, and there is very little acceptance. If I talk about again, I'm transitioning now to the act. The Nalsa judgment said that you have a right to self-identity. यही बात मैंने आपको बोला, सबसे important बात है, you have a right to self-identity. However, the act says, नालसा जजमेंट ने कहा कि नालसा वर्सेस यूओआई ने कहा कि आप सेल्फ डिक्लेरेशन कर सकते हो कि मैं आई एम अ ट्रांसजेंडर पर्सन, ओके, बट एक्ट कहती है कि आपको एक सर्टिफिकेट लेना पड़ेगा ट्रांसजेंडर होने का, और उस सर्टिफिकेट के लिए आपको एक साइकोलॉजिस्ट का सर्टिफिकेट लेकर आना पड़ेगा जो ये सर्टिफाई करें कि हाँ आप ट्रांसजेंडर हो. फिर हमारी कमिटी उस सर्टिफिकेट को रिव्यू करेगी और फिर हम आपको वो जेंडर सर्टिफिकेट देने वाले हैं. वर्सेस व्हेन इट कम्स टू ट्रांजिशनिंग, व्हेन यू आर गोइंग फॉर अ जेंडर अफर्मिंग सर्जरी, जब आप जेंडर अफर्मिंग सर्जरी के लिए जाते हैं तो उसके बाद देयर इज अनदर प्रोसेस. You have to get a revised certificate or from a district magistrate, and he will आप application देंगे कि मैं I was earlier male and now I have undergone a transitioning surgery and now I'm a female, and you need a revised certificate from transgender to now a female. So that district magistrate आपकी application देखेगा, and you have to submit proof of your gender confirmation surgery, and rules are very unclear how judge is going to decide, the district magistrate is going to decide on the correctness of the proof that you have given and the correctness of your claim. So these kind of things are already existing in the act, जो आपको पहले ही आपके कान खड़े कर देते हैं, irritate कर देती है. Similarly, there was a provision, and there has now been constituted a national council for transgender persons. It was constituted on the 21st of August 2020. 1 year hone wala hai. The council consists of 30 members. Out of those 30 members, 5 are transgender persons, 4 are from non-governmental organizations, that are NGOs, and the rest are from the government. So a very huge criticism of the act is, even when the act was passed, the Protection of Transgender Persons Act 2019 was passed, there is not a single transgender person on amongst the signatories, not a single transgender person. So how are you? Fine, you must take in the response and suggestions and recommendations from the transgender community, from NGOs who are working in this area. However, still, when the bill is debated, at that point you need people who represent the community itself, and there is actually no representation at the time of passing of the act, and even in the council, it is the representation, it is under-representation. Like I said, out of 30 members in the council, there are only 5 transgender persons plus 4 who belong to the civic society, the civil society, who the NGO people who are working in this particular area. So there are about, the 2011 census says that there are about 4.88 lakh transgender persons, and we can expect that the number must have increased, twofolds since 2011 to 2021 after the Nalsa judgment, because now you feel free to express your identity. You would want to officially have that certificate. So that number must have increased quite a lot, right? And but for 4.88 lakh, or let's say now about 8 lakh transgender persons in India, the representation is very less, and they're not getting what they had asked for. Just one last point is the punishment prescribed for any kind of sexual abuse against a transgender under the Transgenders Act is minimum 6 months and maximum 2 years, which is way less than punishments prescribed under the IPC for a a heterosexual female undergoing sexual abuse. So I will, I think, stop here at this particular point. There are things that we still need to ponder upon and think about, and I welcome that my email address is here. That's my name @gmail.com, and we can continue this discussion at another point.
Is it just the transgender, or you took us through a plethora of LGBTQ and all the additional? It just keeps on adding from what I'm gathering. So is it just that much, or is the third gender just that much, or is the entire branch encompassed in that?
Transgender, as described by the Act itself and also by NALSA, is anybody who does not identify with the gender that they were assigned at the time of their birth. So sex जो हम identify करते हैं, और जो हमने उस time पर even the government is, अभी भी अगर हम बात करें तो हम यही तो बोल रहे हैं ना, there's a male, there's a female, and there's third gender or transgender. तो अभी तक तो हम बाइनरी की ज्यादा बात करते थे, वहां पर तो आप टी कम लिखते हो, आप एम या एफ ज्यादा लिखने वाले हो कोई भी गवर्नमेंट फॉर्म में, राइट, इन द हॉस्पिटल. सो जो भी इंसान कहा कि आप मेल हो, आप मेल फील नहीं करते हो, आप ट्रांसजेंडर हो. कहा कि आप फीमेल हो पर आप फीमेल फील नहीं करते हो, आप ट्रांसजेंडर हो. सो दैट वाज द आइडिया. आप अपने आप आइडेंटिफाई करोगे अपनी आइडेंटिटी, एंड दैट वाज ट्रांसजेंडर. ट्रांसजेंडर का थोड़ा सा नॉन फॉर्मल या कैजुअल टर्म वाज थर्ड जेंडर. जो हम पहले थर्ड जेंडर यूज कर रहे थे, मैं फिर से बोल रही हूँ कि in India, when we talk about transgender, we are mainly considering in third gender as hijras को हम ज़्यादा consider कर रहे हैं, rather than these persons who, like I said, are not cisgender, who do not identify with the same gender that they were assigned with at the time of their birth. But the official meaning of transgender under the Act and under the NALSA judgment is any person who does not identify with the gender that they were assigned with at the time of birth.
So I believe that is what everyone has to take away from this, that right, whatever it is that you identify and howsoever it is that you want to put yourself forward.
Right, that's right.
So there is a question, ma'am, this is from Miss Nimisha Agnihotri. So she says, are third gender allowed to adopt children in India? Also, how to introduce those as parents in schools?
I was reading about this, whether they are allowed to adopt children in India. So it is only after 2014 कि हम कह रहे हैं कि आपका transgender आने वाला है. 2014 से पहले तो क्वेश्चन अराइज नहीं हो रहा था. आप जाकर बोलोगे मैं मेल हूँ या फीमेल हूँ, जो भी आपका असाइंड जेंडर है, एंड आप उसके बेसिस पर आपको जो भी आपका जेंडर सर्टिफिकेट बेसिकली एट द टाइम ऑफ बर्थ बन जाता है, उसके बेसिस पर आप अडॉप्ट कर सकते हैं या नहीं कर सकते हैं. Very frankly, there was no provision that said that a transgender person or a person who dresses up like a woman but talks like a man or has a a male's voice cannot adopt a child. Right? मैं इसलिए फिर से बोल रही हूँ, यहाँ ट्रांसजेंडर को हम इंक्लूसिव डेफिनेशन ले रहे हैं और हम सिर्फ इंटरसेक्स की बात नहीं कर रहे हैं. सो अ ट्रांसजेंडर पर्सन की जब हम बात करें तो there was no law which said कि एक transgender person जो है, because like I said, binary था, male या female. अब हम transgender की बात करते हैं, whether they can adopt a child, the third gender or a transgender person. I'm sorry that I have not looked this up. As such, there need not be any prohibition against it, but again, it depends on whether the adoption agencies are willing, or the government is willing to give a child to in adoption to a transgender person. But then let me get you concrete facts on this, and also how to introduce those parents in school. Well, which movie was that? I think we know. There's some movie, Pooja Bhatt, Mahesh Bhatt, and Sadashiv Amipurkar, and Pooja Bhatt was brought up, she was abandoned by her parents, and she was brought up by a hijra person, or an intersex person, and what the things that she underwent. So yeah, usually transgender persons are so far have not been allowed to adopt children, just circumstances, in the sense that the agency would come up with some of the other excuse, or the government would come up with some of the other excuse, and the background check, and not allow for that kind of adoption. Basically, that was just it. But how to introduce these persons in school? Well, they should be introduced as, okay, mother or father, whatever gender they have assigned themselves to.
Yes, sir.
Just one question, only one question.
Definitely, sir. Please ask.
377 is struck down.
377 as such has not been struck down. Only a portion of it has been decriminalized. The portion relating to homosexuality.
Elaborate on, because according to, of course, I'm not updated. I not handled long back, 20 years back, I handled only one matter under 377.
All right.
I'm Kumar speaking, madam, practicing advocate.
Right.
You have explained very well, very well. It is an unknown subject. I appreciate you spoke very well. Advocate Abhishek is saying it is struck down.
Just the portion related to homosexuality, where it says that and consensual homosexuality, where it says that consensual intercourse between two persons.
Yeah, exactly. In respect of gays, which you are not touched, so you are touched it.
Right,
Gays
but not
are harassed by all the police people, and it has become an extortion racket.
Yes, yes,
And
absolutely, absolutely.
So it is a consensual, and then both adults. Then where is the question of any sodomy? So on that, I think High Court and Supreme Court has passed various judgments.
Yes.
A portion is struck down, correct?
Absolutely, a portion of it is
struck down.
Yeah. Sorry, sir.
Which portion of 377 is struck down?
I'll just have to go back to the act and tell you the exact words.
On the website. Thank you very much. Keshav, my question is over. Please continue.
Thank you so much. So I think with respect to sir's answer, the question is only with respect to legitimizing consensual same-sex relationships is the only bit, because 377 deals with bestiality and natural sex and a lot of other things. So maybe with respect to that, we'll definitely, Nirati ma'am, I will hats off say that this is definitely one of the very important and substantive topics that we have touched upon.
Yeah.
And that we will most definitely need to come back more on this. As you also replied in the message box, Mr. Sanjeev Bhargava. So he has also submitted that any LGBTQ person can take permission from district magistrate to adopt. So again, there is a lot of, I would say, ambiguity so far, ma'am, and as you very rightly put it before us, that it is only since 2014 that there have been substantial rights that have been given to a very large community. Right. So with respect to that, ma'am, most definitely thank you so much for touching upon this particular topic. I still remember when I was just promoting this particular idea that there is this class that we are holding, there was such a wide variety of questions. No one has ever asked me that who is the advocate, or what is the experience of the advocate, or what is the orientation of that advocate while I have promoted any classes for law, right? Or where is that person practicing, which bar is he enrolled with? No one has asked me any of that. But while I was promoting, just for this particular class, so many people wanted to ask such a wide variety of questions, even with respect to the faculty, that where do they assign themselves, how do they pitch this.
Exactly.
I think it runs,
Yeah.
people's minds run entirely wild in that respect.
In
But-
fact, all the talks that I have attended so far specifically about transgender and LGBTQ, most of them are given by, when it's not an academic discussion. Academia discussion करना है तो ठीक है, कोई भी करे, male female दोनों करे. But थोड़ा practical की जब भी बात आती है, and even my discussion has been more on the on the academic side. So it is the people belonging from the community who are acting with the NGOs, who are working with the NGOs for their benefit. And yes, that is why I know that mostly, अभी मैं भी lectures सुन रही थी, 2 या 3 lectures मैंने भी कल परसों में सुने थे, and all were by transgender persons only. So in this area में, yeah, non-academic work is mostly being done by transgender persons only.
But ma'am, I personally feel, this is now entirely my personal thought, but the moment we start distinguishing and differentiating between people on the basis of, the moment a person starts having this, that this person belongs to this particular community, that is the only reason why this particular person has more knowledge or depth to share, I think the idea of inclusivity is lost.
That's true. That's very true.
That is, I think, what everyone at the end of the day talks about when they're wanting it. But again, people are, to a very large extent, people want very different things.
Also, it is a matter of, like I said, representation. At least यहाँ पर तो अपने बारे में तो उनको बोलने का right होना चाहिए. It's like feminism के बारे में आदमी आकर बोल रहे हैं, feminist movement को सिर्फ आदमी चला रहे हैं, तो कोई point नहीं है. जब तक women नहीं बोलेंगी, तब तक हम कैसे बात करेंगे feminism के बारे में? तो similarly, जब तक आप transgender activists आपके पास नहीं होंगे, people from the community नहीं होंगे, तब तक कोई फायदा नहीं है. So yes, definitely, this was more of an academic discussion, and we can go deeper into this. And even I have spoken to a lot of transgender persons, and then पता लगा कि अच्छा उनको क्या practically problems जैसे COVID-19 में भी आई, and other situations में भी आई. And yeah, again, it's not personal, it is academic for me. So I can understand.
And ma'am, but that is where we appreciate this particular thought, that at least you've come out and you've shared the academic aspect of things with us, which other people are, like people who are also commenting various things, that those people are also not willing to even delve upon the academic side of it, and then people want a lot of change.
That's
But with respect to that, ma'am, I thank you so much for taking the time out and conducting this class today.